This whole episode is a trap. You had to know I was starting like that. Come on, guys.
Should have let me do that.
Fine. You want to take over the rest of
It's
the
a
episode
trap.
hosting? Go.
It's a trap.
That's
There we go.
worse. I see your name on Zoom and it's worse
It's worse than what?
than what I did.
I don't think so.
Max, be the judge.
They're both bad. Let's move on.
So we're talking about M. Night Shyamalan's latest, Trap.
Yes,
Yeah.
We're not talking about Knock at the Cabin. We're not talking about Old or The Beach That Makes You Old.
those are not his most recent movies. So,
They're two of his most recent movies before Trap. So let's talk about Trap. What'd you think?
Ben.
uh, well, honestly, I enjoyed it a lot. I had a great time. M. Night Shyamalan is always like hit or miss for me. His dialogue is wonky, but in this one, I liked it. It's like almost surreal, comedic at times, scary at others. But I think he did the suspense really well, especially in the concert, uh, like tight angles and stuff. I loved, and seeing like him get out of his seat and just search for an exit every 5 minutes. You kind of felt his need to get out. It's very claustrophobic. Um, but I enjoyed it. I mean, Josh Hartnett's putting on a great performance. He's half Nicolas Cage, half Hannibal Lecter. It's a great mix.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty solid. I think the writing was it was not my favorite in a film that I've seen. But I think like you said, Ben, great performance from Josh Hartnett. Um, he was really kind of scary at certain points.
Hmm.
Like especially when he towards in the latter half of the film, especially when after he'd revealed and you just get that like crazy glint in his eyes and you can sort of see them getting darker. I he was kind of scary. But you did feel the claustrophobia, like you said, in the concert and in the venue, especially as the FBI started to close in, and the different locations as we moved throughout the film, in the stadium, like that kind of felt claustrophobic too, especially towards the end, near the dressing room, where there really felt like there was no way out, and he played his ace, I guess, and got him
Yeah,
out.
I think Hartnett is the clear and obvious standout here. He gives a really, really good performance. And I agree that Shyamalan really plays up the not necessarily creepiness, but sort of s scariness of the butcher of Cooper. And I think a lot of what he does creatively with shot selection, like literally, like look at the zoom windows that we're in. It's Hartnett centered up in frame, essentially staring into camera with that huge grin on his face and these dark eyes. Like that is scary shit. And I think that plays up the unpredictability of the character and plays up the sort of tension that we're supposed to feel as an audience reacting to each and every one of his moves. He's very neurotic and kind of sporadic for the first two acts of the movie until he makes that reveal to Lady Raven in the dressing room.
Hmm.
Um, and again, with the almost he's sort of antsy when he every time he gets back to his seat or every time he's talking to his daughter, where
Yeah.
he wants to find his way out. He's like an animal who's been cornered, and
Well, I
he
love
knows that, and we
the
don't
shots.
necessarily know it yet. Like with going into an M Night Shyamalan movie, you might be expecting a twist. There's really no twist in this movie. I know I was kind of
The,
thinking, well, what if
the,
Cooper
the
isn't
twist
the
I think
butcher?
is the twist I think is mainly just that Rachel was the one that ratted him out. That she set it up.
Yeah.
So I mean that is a bit of a twist. I think it's one of his better twists. Sometimes he goes swings so hard, it's just
But
it's wild.
all of that aside, I will agree with Max that the dialogue's not my favorite. I think it severely lacks luster. And a lot of the performances, Alison Pill is very good, even though she's only in the last 35, 40 minutes of the movie. Hartnett's very good. Honestly, my bronze medal for performances here is Shyamalan as the concert usher guy who's Lady Raven's uncle. Like none of
That
the
was
other
a
performances
that was
is.
an extended cameo. I
It
think
was
that's
longer than I expected. Like I
that was
went
longer
in,
than all the other ones that I remember in some of his movies.
I knew that he was in the movie, and I was like trying to see, oh, is he just gonna be in the background of a shot? Is he just gonna have the one line? And then he's like a serious feature of two scenes.
He wanted to share it with his daughter.
Yeah,
Exactly. This is the most Shyamalan of his movies in terms of family members and himself.
I don't
Mhm.
Um,
think that that's a high bar to clear, considering it's usually just his cameo.
yeah, that's true. He did have his daughters worked with him on movies before, but yeah, she's actually starred in this one. Um, about the dialogue, I was a Shyamalan non-believer for a while. Like the dialogue is wonky, but after a while, you kind of get into it. It's a unique way of speaking. You don't really treat it as like these characters are really going to say this. It's more of I think he described it as like points of view. Um, and when you approach it from a different way, I think he would enjoy it more. But it took me a while to get to that point. But
Yeah, you're
at
right.
this,
It does fade into the background, but it definitely hits my ear wrong at the beginning. And just it is jarring, I think, at the
I
outset at least.
I disagree. I think it's more so at the end. Everything after the concert, the dialogue, whether it's Cooper or his family or Lady Raven, like it's it it doesn't hit my ears right. Exactly what you said, Max. But early on, all of Cooper's interactions at the concert, I feel like placed pretty strongly in terms of dialogue and script.
well, I enjoyed all of it. I thought
I probably could have called that.
it's definitely directed like it's supposed to be a little weird.
Yeah.
Um, that's definitely the goal. It's his own unique way of writing. He writes all his movies, directs them all, and funds them all.
You funded this
Um,
one.
he funds every single one of his films, every single one, which I think is great because it allows him to do whatever he wants, um,
Full creative control.
creatively. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, some of the stuff that he does in some of his movies, yeah, you know, I don't dig as much. Like Old is kind of a weird one. It's just a little bizarre. But this, I thought it was great. There were no moments that I was like, all right, that's a little weird, M. Night Shyamalan. Um, it's a little off-putting, but at the same time, I mean, it kind of works for me. Like it made me off-put in a way where it's like, this guy is creepy, you know?
Mhm.
So I don't know. Maybe it just worked better for this one, but I've gotten over my criticisms of his rating.
I think I just need more exposure.
Yeah, watch a lot of his films, and then you sort of get into it. But it's like anything. It's his own genre almost.
Also, I mean, he just seems to be having a lot of fun making whatever he wants to make.
Yeah,
So, I really can't fault him for that, especially with the IP heavy blockbusters and stuff that are
Yeah.
it's just to see someone do what they want to do without really any strings attached, and he can just do whatever he wants. He can
yeah.
do
He
it
was
with his daughter, and no one can be like, I don't know about that. He's like, okay, fine.
he always has like an interesting philosophical points too. All his films, they're not just like a thriller or whatever, which I find refreshing. Um, he did the elevated horror before anyone else did, I guess. Stuff like The Sixth Sense and whatnot. Though I guess I mean less horror, more of like the thriller stuff. But
Yeah, this I think with a lot of his previous works, like I guess Old is one recent example of that. Sixth Sense, Split, not necessarily Split, but a lot of what he's done before relies on not necessarily supernatural, but science fiction in a really, really significant way when it comes to the actual narrative of the film.
mm-hmm.
And this one plays a lot more like a straight crime thriller. There's a psychological element to it, which I think plays up the tension, plays up the fear.
Yeah,
But
I think that's a substitute for the supernatural. Is having our uh, our main point of view be really psychologically not all right. Keep seeing his mother everywhere and all that stuff.
right, but compared to some of the other films,
Yeah.
it's very low to the ground. It's very accessible, very I'm not going to say ordinary because it's not, but it's something I think the audience can connect with the story a little more easily than some of these higher brow, higher concept, really need to suspend your disbelief kind of movies that he's done before.
Yeah, I mean, he does a lot of like the supernatural elements are typically to just have some interesting aspect of like human conversation. It's never the main focus, I guess. Um, it's more of like a vehicle. So yeah, I think the concert idea really works well. Um,
I just
also,
wish it had been the whole movie. Like I wrote about this in my Letterboxd review, and Max and I were talking about this before you hopped on, Ben, that everything that happens at the concert is top tier. The story, the script, the performances, the shots, and the setting, they're all you got all the pieces there for a really, really strong film. And then they get out of the arena, and I feel like it just falls apart almost. Like the third act feels kind of sloppy to me. Like it
I mean,
it stays
I
it
like
stays relatively together from a narrative standpoint, but I feel like everything that was carrying the tension early on about being trapped at the arena at this concert, he gets out and yeah, the FBI is still following him, but now you don't have that element of they're right around the corner all the time.
Well, I
I
think the tension is sort of the connection between him and his family still, right? And like
yeah.
him continuing to go back to them even in spite of a heavy police presence basically on a citywide manhunt for him. I don't know. I think when it comes to being disjointed, I don't know. I felt like they had to go out of the theater because the concert had to end at some point. And so, keep the family tie there and sort of watch him figure out and watch him battle the decision between, doing whatever, like turning himself in or going it off and killing whoever he needs to kill.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I really I got some like Cape Fear vibes. It's very suspenseful in the beginning, and then it sort of turned into a full-fledged horror movie almost. Um, so I think that works fine. And also, I like. I mean, a lot of the philosophical stuff is like going back to who he is, his beginning, his home, his mom, and so bringing it back home to like reflect on his family as well. Um, I think it works narratively a lot better than just having it be a simple thrill exercise. I mean, that's the thing that I like about Shyamalan is that he has a bit more to it. If it's just about like the trap, I mean, interesting idea, but that would fall apart. I just don't think you can keep up that suspense. It's very suspenseful, but if you just stay on that track, you're going to lose the suspense. I mean, there's you can't just suspend people forever. Something has to happen. Something has to
All
drop.
right, the shoe's got to drop.
Yeah.
And I think that there would have been a way if he had slowed down, he being Shyamalan, if he had slowed down the narrative of Cooper as a character at the concert, kept pursuing these different avenues. Like they set up that uh hole in the aisle right next to his seats. If they had pursued that beyond just one line, hey, what if we went down there? Like that would have been another, few minutes to play around
Yeah,
with that. You could
but
have
then
done the
it's
entire movie at the concert if you kept playing around with the arena, kept playing around with the idea of finding different exits.
I
But I
mean
think
you
the point is that
but
he's trying to keep his daughter happy and in the dark, right?
yeah,
He doesn't want her to figure out what's going on at the concert. Once they get out of the venue and the concert, it doesn't matter. But
like
while they're
it's
in
not
the venue, he
But
wants her
why
to
doesn't
enjoy.
it matter if he's trying to keep these two sides of himself so separate all the time? Why does it suddenly not matter once they've left the concert?
Because he's been able to keep them separate for so long. He's riding this high of like I can still figure this out. Like it's a game to him.
yeah.
He's a serial killer. It's a game. This is a game. This is literally like his wet dream. Like he wants to do this. Like this is fun for him. You see how much fun he had playing around with the knife in the storage compartment, and like you could kind of tell he was trying to figure out, what do I do with it? Should I keep it? Should I peel off
Hmm.
a blade or something, whatever it might be. But part of what keeps him at the venue and with his daughter is that he wants her to enjoy it, and he thinks he can keep the two lives separate.
And he's also trying to go for the least like noticeable way to get out. If he just starts like prying open a door or something like that, it's probably too obvious.
Like if he thought he could sneak out through the front door when he pushed that woman down the stairs, he would have just done that. He would have
Yeah.
pushed another person down the stairs.
I mean, I think that's the suspense. Is like he's doing all this stuff and he gets a little bit closer, but it's like, is he going to get caught? What's going to happen? And then it transitions, and I think it works to like leave the venue. And then it's not just about him being trapped by the police, like he's going to be caught, that he's trapped having to like, be in this situation where his lives have now conflicted. And he doesn't know how to act. I mean, you sort of see it, like he unravels as a person. He gets angry. He gets, from the once like cool demeanor, you see him like completely lose it.
It's sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
Stops picking up after himself. When he
Yeah.
knocked the tennis racket in the garage, he didn't pick it up, even though
Mm-hmm.
moments before he like straightened something. Like he was losing it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys make good points. As this double life sort of comes crashing down around him, we see the breaks in the psyche even more than we do at the beginning of the movie. Like he sees his mother, you know, two stalls down from him in the men's room in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And then by the end of the movie, it's the profiler impersonating or masquerading as his mother to try to lure him
Mm-hmm.
out. And then you get all the tasers and everything's just all he's still fighting, he's still trying to get around it because he's
Very
so
horrible.
mentally gone
That
that
reminded me of what's his name, the Beast or whatever, in
Mm-hmm.
Split, and
Yeah, I thought about that too.
yeah,
no new ideas.
well, he's got his own style.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves like an unhinged person getting tased and just won't go down. That happens in
Yeah,
real
like
life too.
Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover.
Um, yes.
What do you guys make of the concept? Because we've talked a little bit about what Shyamalan does with some of his other films being a little bit more into science fiction, supernatural, paranormal.
I loved it. I mean, it
Putting it at a
really amps up the
concert,
suspense. Huh?
putting this film at a concert and setting a trap for a
So
serial killer
cool.
at a concert.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
cool. Am I wrong? Was this not based off of something that actually happened?
I don't think so.
I
I
don't
thought
know,
I read
but two people were arrested in Austria this week, one of
I did see
whom
that.
was sort of self-radicalized online, and he was going to target Taylor Swift's concerts in Vienna this weekend.
Yes,
I saw that
the
as I was
Swifties.
walking out of the movie.
But like with this, current sort of social era that we find ourselves in, and I don't use that word era lightly here, with major musicians and artists having these stadium type concerts that become events. Like we saw the tragedy in Las Vegas and you know terror attacks at concerts in Europe in the past. Like this is a commentary on that in a much sort of lower to the ground way with a serial killer than a terrorist, if you can call it that. But I think this is
Yeah.
Shyamalan sort of playing on the social moment of these pop stars as sort of global attractions. There are thousands of people at this Lady Raven concert where the butcher is expected to be, and then the concert is sort of a side piece to the FBI and law enforcement trying to get this guy out.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I think more it's a commentary on like the relationships, like the community and things like that. He says to his daughter with like the phone, it's like, you guys are so connected, even, if you don't know each other. Um,
Friends with the girls next to her immediately
there were
after he
still
left.
friends
So
there.
yeah,
She was making friends with the people dancing. And it's like contrasted by, and that's authentic, and it's contrasted by Cooper, who's like a sociopath and can make friends, but not, genuinely. And
it
it's like,
was based off of a real sting operation, by the way. In 1985, Operation Flagship,
huh.
disguised law enforcement arrested 101 wanted fugitives at a convention center, having invited them under the pretense of gifting them free
Oh,
NFL tickets and an opportunity to
Okay.
an all expenses paid trip to the Super Bowl.
I've heard that story before.
All right. So a trap, but a little bit different.
Yeah,
And it
but
doesn't
That's
seem
luring
pretty
people
darn
in.
good.
That's just taking
That's pretty
advantage of
good.
stupid criminals.
Jeez
Um,
Louise.
but yeah, Ben, your point about Riley being able to make these friends so quickly and be connected so easily.
and
Um,
also Lady Raven like just going on Instagram and like immediately finding this dude using her
yeah,
community. I think there's
very
some
very plugged in.
I gotta watch it again, but I think some of the dialogue is like I think it's pretty smart. He definitely does a good job to reward people.
I think Jamie's dialogue is very good, especially in
Jamie's
the
dialogue.
especially in the mid-credit scene.
That's that's Cooper.
That was the
I mean,
funniest moment of the movie. And it was after the fucking credits rolled.
I like that. It's just a nice, and it's really hard to pull off, but there is a nice blend of like thrill, horror, and just comedy,
There's a
even through
lot of levity to this movie. Yeah.
his. It's weird. It's like it's funny, just because he says some ridiculous stuff, but it's also like freaky in a way, just to see him like lie to everyone around him and be like everyone looking at him like, oh, he's such a great guy.
Well, there are these
It's
these great moments, and you're absolutely right, Ben, where we see them sort of interspersed with the Cooper's a great guy versus the butcher is a ruthless serial killer,
Mhm.
where he'll be setting up, uh, you know, a weekend get together with that other mom, and then the next moment, I might be getting the order of events wrong, but he's getting the code word from Jamie, or he's stealing the cops' walkie-talkie, or he's dropping what was it, soda or something into a fryer,
It was
and
oil.
it was
Yeah, it was.
more oil.
It was hot oil that when it cracks the glass and mixes with cold oil, boom.
It goes boom. I
Yeah,
didn't read I didn't read the bottle, so I didn't recognize that it was oil. Excuse me.
It did say canola oil on
it's
I didn't.
okay.
It
But
doesn't matter.
basically, he knew what he was doing. He knew
Yeah.
it would hurt someone.
Oh, yeah,
Caused
it
the
was just like so
explosion.
calm too.
Yeah.
It's like completely
And
scarred
he was
that person.
calm when he very blatantly pushed that woman down the stairs as his first sort of
Yeah.
act.
Right by his daughter too. It's
That
like,
was insane. Yeah.
That was our first hint,
Yeah. Also that he
first
picked up
indication.
on the police presence and everything immediately.
well,
Pretty
yeah,
much
because he's looking. I mean, I think it's
looking
great to be
everywhere the
at a
moment he
concert.
steps. Yeah.
So like everything should be, her daughter's just like strictly focused on stage. Everyone is looking right there. And then he's just like looking around all the time, getting
And
up out of the seat.
one thing I think Shyamalan does really, really well with building up the tension of the police presence is having the cops and the FBI and the armed guards grabbing different guys out of the audience to come question them,
Mhm.
and it gets closer to him as the concert goes on.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah,
So the
they
world
get
is
right
quite
there,
literally closing in on him.
Yep.
and they get right there right as they take him up to
Right.
the stage. And then M. Night Shyamalan convinces them. It's like, oh no, no, this guy, his daughter has cancer. It's fine. He can go through. And then finally, when he reveals like everything to Lady Raven, he's so calm. It's freaky. It's like,
Hmm.
carbon monoxide, just
He
rattles
just
on.
says that. And it's like, what?
He says like 5 lines about carbon monoxide and then just pulls out his phone. It's like, I believe you're looking for me. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I definitely understand why some people wouldn't like the dialogue, but for me, it's just like unique to see something different. He has his own brand of movie making, and too many people like copy each other these days. Nobody really copies M. Night Shyamalan, so it means that like he's got his own style. It feels like a unique movie, every time, and there's something to be said for that.
It feels like a movie, like you go to the cinema and you see a movie.
It feels like it's not just a movie, George. It's a film.
Yes. No, this film, again, my exposure to M. Night's uh, filmography is somewhat limited, but I think with more of a deep dive on my part into what he's done before, what he does from here, because obviously he's going to keep making films. Um, I think I'll have a greater appreciation for this film down the road. I can't say that I want to rewatch it in the way that some other movies we've done I would want to go back to and see in a theater or rent or even stream down the road. Um, but I certainly there's enough there for this movie for me to get past its flaws, for me to look past what I didn't particularly enjoy about it and see some of the strengths of filmmaking here, which is honestly not something I expected to say 30 minutes into this episode.
All right,
You
progress.
you brought out some good thoughts about this movie from me, Benjamin. And you too,
I I,
Max.
I want to watch it again just because every time, the more I watch M. Night Shyamalan movies, the first time I watched it, I'm like, all right, that was kind of weird. And then you sort of get into it, and it's like, oh, that's a cool idea. Um, like some of the things that he says, some of the random sentences that 6-year-olds say, like an old. That's a little too jarring for me, but some of the stuff that he does is great. Um, Again, I don't know that it's not like everyone will enjoy it, but it's definitely worth a watch. If nothing else, for Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, this is the third Josh Hartnett movie we've done after Operation Fortune and Oppenheimer.
He's doing
And
great.
he's the guy's got some range.
Yeah,
He's
he's always had range.
specifically in the movies that we've talked about in the pod.
Well, yeah,
But yeah, my feelings about Josh Hartnett have my opinion of him has only grown as a result of this movie.
it's a great career revival. Because I guess he was afraid of fame. He had his own horror movie where somebody like stood outside his door, like wanted him to come out. He got freaked out by that, which I think most people would.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. 100%.
But I'm glad he's back.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so as I said at the beginning, this whole episode was a trap. We were actually talking about staying alive again, in case you didn't know after 30 minutes of this episode that we were actually doing the same episode from 3 years ago once again. So you all fell for it. We're geniuses. Max and Ben, this was actually Ben's idea to do this whole reveal at the end of the episode. Really, really well played, Ben. Proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's the mastermind. He's actually been hosting this whole time, by the way, speaking through me as a medium. I don't know. The
I'm
bit
setting up
didn't
the
land. We'll
carbon
see you next
dioxide.
week. Go see Trap if you're a Shyamalan fan or not. It's worth checking out in the theater. Um, we're doing The Instigators next week. Matt Damon, Casey Affleck,
All right.
Apple TV.
Cool. All right.
Watch some good movies. Let us know your thoughts. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.